Okay. Uh, in 1940, I was a teenager, and the war was on, Second World War, and they were drafting all of us young fellows to service, and I knew I was going to be drafted soon, and so I decided, well, I will volunteer for one branch of service, so I'll have a choice of where I can serve. And so I decided that my parents were very much concerned that I get somewhere where I would be safe and likely not have to be in the midst of a battle. And so they thought I should join the Navy, which I did. I joined the Navy. I signed all the papers, and the Camp Farragut up in northern Idaho was the naval training station, and so I got on a bus then going up to northern Idaho to serve in the Navy. On the way to Boise, the bus stopped, and the person in charge called out a few names. Mine was one of them. Had to stand out on the platform, and the train went off and left us. Well, we stood there for a while, and in a little while a Jeep came up, and out came a colonel, a major in the Marine Corps. And anyway, he called us all to attention and said, "Congratulations, you men have just volunteered to serve in the United States Marines." And of course we kind of objected, but then we found out that the Marines were a branch of the Navy, and we'd signed all the papers and things. So last thing really that I thought I wanted to do was to be in the Marines. They were fighting the battles of the Pacific and didn't sound too safe and comfortable, but anyway, I ended up being in the Marine Corps. And when I was in the Marines, went through boot camp in San Diego, a very tough boot experience, and then we went out to Camp Pendleton, and there we did some very exhaustive training. And in the midst of all that exhaustive training, I got a letter, and it was a Dear John letter. And what that was this girlfriend. She and I had gone together through high school, and she had kind of promised that she would wait for me. And she did wait for about 3 weeks, and then she married a fellow Marine. And anyway, that was very upsetting to me. I couldn't, I'm sure she was going to wait, she didn't. So anyway, I kind of couldn't sleep, and I was just a dumb kid. But anyway, in the course of it all, I couldn't keep up with my duties and basic training. And so the CEO said, "You better go see the chaplain. That's what you did if you had a problem." And so he sent me in a Jeep to see the regimental chaplain. He wasn't there. And I had a sign that said, "Anyone that's wanting to see this chaplain should see the division chaplain." Now, the division chaplain is on the general staff, high-ranking officer. I didn't want to see the division chaplain. But this corporal that was with me, he took me to the division chaplain's office and kind of shoved me through the door and said, "You want to see the chaplain, and by so-and-so you're going to see the chaplain." So anyway, I went in, and here was this grizzled-looking old Marine, well, he was a captain in the Navy, highest-ranking officer I'd ever seen. He was sitting behind the desk, and he said, "What can I help you with?" And I didn't want to say anything, but I told him about this girlfriend that had gone off and married another fellow, and he said, "Well, how much money do you have?" And I said, "Well, I had about $1.28, something like that." He said, "Oh, that's not enough." So he took out of his own billfold, I think it was about a lot of money anyway, $15, something like that, $20, and handed it to me, and he said, "Here, take this." And I said, "What's that for?" He said, "Well, when you get into trouble like that, I'm told that you got to get things, worries off your mind, and I'm told the best thing is alcohol. You sure can't get drunk on $1.28, so here's some cash, you go spend that and go out on the town and have a good time. And I kind of objected. I said, you know, we're confined to the base. We can't get off the base. He said, oh, just go ahead, right, go over the hill, and when the MPs pick you up and put you in the brig, you just have them call me and I'll come down and bail you out. And he said, just take this money and have a good drinking party. And so I took the money and started out. Then I realized I had a problem. So I went back in and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but I don't drink. And he said, what do you mean you don't drink? You're a Marine? Yes, sir, but I don't drink. Well, why don't you drink? Well, it's against my religion. Well, what religion is that? And I had to tell him that I was a Mormon. And I was a little reluctant to, because I knew what some people think of the Mormons. Anyway, he said, well, what else don't you do? And I said, well, I don't use smoking a big cigar. It's chaplain in the Marines, in the Navy. And I said, well, I don't use tobacco. And he said, what else don't you do? He said, do you use profanity? And I said, no, I didn't use profanity. And then he gave me a very exhaustive interview. Well, he didn't know what was going on. He asked all kinds of questions. When he got through, he said, how were you on the rifle range? Well, I was an expert. And he said, did you chase the girls? And I told him no, and a lot of other things. Then he gave this interview. When he got through, he said, that settles up. There's one man in this outfit that doesn't drink or chase the girls or use profanity. I want him with me and by my side when we go into conflict. How would you like to be my assistant? And so I became then the assistant to Commander Warren F. Thrill, the division chaplain. And that was a life-saving thing, what you did, saved my life later on, as I then served as a division chaplain's assistant. And that gave me some kind of prestige and could kind of choose what I got to do and things like that. And anyway, that's how I went through then the war as the division chaplain's assistant. A lot of what our work was in the processing and burial of the dead, which when we hit the island, invaded a little island called Iwo Jima, and we had 7,000 Marines killed, and I was involved in the processing and burial of these dead, and so that was the kind of what we did. What I did in the Marines. But anyway, finally they had also I had line duty. I was assigned to a rifle company, machine gun platoon, and it was a kind of extra, and and anyway we then went and invaded this little island of Iwo Jima, which was, by that time they were bombing Japan from the island Saipan and Tinian, but that meant that the planes had to go over this little island of Iwo Jima, which was owned by the Japanese, and they had 3 airfields there, and they were sending up their planes and knocking out our bombers. So anyway, big shots decided we needed to take that little island of Iwo Jima, which we did at great loss of life, but Jap was able to take that and send our own planes up to then make so that they could continue bombing the Japanese and winning the war. But anyway, that was kind of how I did in the service, and doing that. When I was, what did I say? I was the chaplain's assistant, and and when we were on the line, they sent a messenger up and said, "You got a chaplain's assistant here named Brown?" He said, "Yes." Well, they cleared off a spot back there where they can start burying the dead, and he's needed back at the cemetery, and here's his replacement. So I was taken then off the line. We've been trying to take a little knoll, and the casualties were high. Anyway, so I was taken off the line and went back then to the cemetery and worked there. And my replacement there, he ended up being a casualty, so it saved my life having that position in the Marines as a division chaplain's assistant. We buried a lot of people and took care of that, mostly my owner primarily. And that was one of the jobs I had, in processing and burial of the dead. So anyway, maybe that's sufficient to just explain that.